Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pro Wrestling Inside Now. I am Brent West along with Jack Lord, and we'll be talking professional wrestling. There's no telling what we'll be talking about. Rodney will not be with us. He's a little under the weather, and so he will not be with us, but he will be back with us next week.
I believe the Lucha, what's he call himself? Brian?
The Wookiee Luchador.
Wookiee Luchador. I'll finally get it out there. I believe he did a run-in on Rodney when he wasn't looking.
I think he did too. Yeah, did we not talk about Marva Scott once, Jack?
Yes.
I found this JC Dykes. I think I might have told this story before, but Jimmy Dykes is the one that actually started my father Ron West in the professional wrestling business. He would let him at the time. Jimmy Dykes was not a manager. He was not JC Dykes at that time. He was just a referee, and he would take the ring. I say just, but that's just what he did. He wasn't and occasionally he would wrestle on the first or second matches when somebody didn't show up. Well, when he became a manager for professional wrestling, he would send our father, even in 1967, he would send them programs and stuff back in the day. And this is 19. He would write on these the dates. And this one right here, he wrote on here, and this is Jimmy Dykes that wrote this on here. He wrote, can you read that? Is it February 17th, 1967? I believe that's what that says. February 10th, 1967.
Yes.
Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So he sent this to you. And when I was looking through it, I remember you talking about Marva Scott. And there she is right there. She was on this card. The main event was a grudge tag match, 2 out of 3 falls. Lester Welch and Sam Steamboat against the Infernos. Texas Death Match, Mario Galanto against JC Dykes. Lou Thesz was on this event against Bucknet Monroe, and Marva Scott against Emma Wright. He would also, at some point, we would get these some of these programs. Some of them got messed up when we had a water incident, but he would actually tell us what they drew in a lot of these. And on this particular one, he didn't. But 1967 and Lou Thesz right there. I think this picture was used over and over again back in the day. But I was just looking at that today, and I'm thinking, I remember talking about Marva Scott. I think we did a piece on her. I think you did a piece on her.
We did pretty lengthy, and anybody that missed it, you can go to our YouTube channel and search for, and it's very interesting.
All right, Jack, what's going on in the we went back to, this is 1967, the Matman, 1967. What's going on today, 2022?
Oh, Lord, there's all kinds of stuff. First off, let's wish the guy who never listens to our show, but we still love him, Arn Anderson, is 64 today. Okay. And to be fair, I don't listen to his podcast either, but I still like the guy. I mean, he's one of the greatest of all time, really.
Yes.
Let's hit ratings real quick. Dynamite stayed pretty consistent with a 1.175. They're still dealing, I think, with fallout in a positive way from all the negativity from the pay-per-view. But of course, that's where they've capped at all this time. The secret is if they can't break beyond that, I don't know. They're consistent, but they're not really improving that much. Rampage did 470,000, which was up slightly. Good for them. Raw was down significantly because there were 2 NFL games on last night, and they only did a 1.593. SmackDown done 2.2 million. NXT had their biggest rating of the year of 728,000. Tonight's episode, next Wednesday night's episode are pre-taped. So ratings may be down because I know that one of the reasons I don't watch Rampage is because I'll read the results. And once I've read the results, I really don't, that doesn't entice me to go and actually watch the show if I already know what's going on. I don't watch any TV series or movie if people spoil it to that point for me. So, it's not just a AEW or WWE issue when that happens. Tony Khan has fired shots again at WWE, calling their Crown Jewel event a foreign country BS. That the only Crown Jewel that matters is the show he's got starting this Wednesday night in New York. He said that is the true Crown Jewel of professional wrestling. He does have, looks to be, $1 million gate. Now, I'm not sure how much tickets are. I guess they're significantly priced. I hope they do well. Meanwhile, in WWE headquarters, they're going, we get $50 million for a Crown Jewel. So, Survivor Series will now feature 2 War Games matches. Right now, there are no plans to do the traditional team Raw against SmackDown men's and women's matches. In fact, Triple H said that the War Games matches will not be Raw versus SmackDown, but all participants will be included in some kind of ongoing storyline that makes sense for all these people to go against each other. What a revolutionary idea.
Yes.
And War Games, he loves War Games. He brought that back for NXT, but this is the first time that it would be featured on the 2 main roster shows. WWE also has another match that they're bringing up at Extreme Rules that they did at NXT before, called the Fight Pit match, which is basically a cage match with no ropes. So it's like an MMA fight. Yeah. And that would feature Rodney's favorite, Matt Riddle, against my favorite, Seth Rollins. WWE
who's the bad guy? Who's the good guy in this? We don't know.
Now, Riddle's still the bad guy. Oh, I mean, the good guy, and Rollins is still the bad guy.
Randy Orton's still not back, right?
Still not back, and there's no updates as to when he may or may not be back. Triple H had a press conference the other day where he talked about no more blood in WWE. He feels like they, as a company, have moved far beyond that. He acknowledged that used to be a huge part of their industry. But he said with, all the issues that go on with bloodborne diseases and things like that they just don't see a need to it. He said, you have seen it on our programming this year. He said every instance that it's happened has been accidental. He said there was no pre-calling of that. And either commercial breaks were taken where doctors were, sent down to see about them at ringside to make sure that, they're not injured. It's not going to be a big deal. He said, we just don't feel like it's necessary anymore. And quite frankly, I agree with him.
Yeah.
Ricky Steamboat is coming out of retirement. He will be wrestling on November 27th for Big Time Wrestling in Raleigh, North Carolina, to which, and I kid you not, Ric Flair said, I'm going to start training again.
Hey, that's the reason Ricky Steamboat didn't want to wrestle against Ric Flair. He already knew that he had this Big Time Wrestling match coming up on November. What did you say November was?
November 27th.
November 27th. Is that Thanksgiving?
I believe it's that weekend. I'm not sure if it's actual Thanksgiving or not.
Man, I just got choked on my own spit over here. Just give me just one moment, folks.
It is the Sunday after Thanksgiving.
Is that Bobby Fulton? Bobby
No,
Fulton.
I don't think that's Bobby Fulton. Could be. Don't hold me to that. But I thought he ran up in Ohio.
I think he did. Yeah, I believe he does. I think that talking about that, Bobby Fulton said that I guess he has a son that wrestles, and he wants to wrestle against Ricky Morton and his son, and I cannot remember his name at this point, at an upcoming show.
Kerry Morton.
Kerry Morgan. So he wants to have that match, and he said he thought he had one more match that he could give the people. Plus, he feels like he sells some tickets. I'm pretty sure.
I think they will, and they do some extremely big cards up there. He and his son know what they're doing when it comes to promoting these events, and they do very well at them. And they have just a plethora of the older big name stars that are there for appearances and things. I mean, the fan fest attached to this show is spectacular. One of the best you'll ever go to. And now, last but not least, is our little news bit of where Comcast, NBC Universal, wants to buy Warner Brothers Discovery and fold them over into NBC Universal. So we shall see how that goes. But if that were to happen, it don't look good for AEW.
No, they're not going to pick AEW over WWE.
Now, I will say that I've read reports that Warner Brothers, Warner Media, has been actually very happy with the ratings and the results that they're getting from AEW, that for the cost involved, they feel like they're getting their money's worth. They are discussing additional wrestling related projects. Tony Khan has long talked about wanting a Ring of Honor outlet, to be able to put his show on somewhere. But he's also talking about doing a complete women's show as well. So and there's some reality shows I think they're looking at. I think the one from Cody Rhodes did fairly well for them, and so they see some potential there. But again, if you get bought out by, and the people that buying you has already got a monster company in WWE, I don't see them keeping two wrestling companies, especially with Tony trying to blow his nose on everything related to WWE.
It's incredible that he spends as much time on talking about WWE. If he would take that much time to actually talk to his talent and worry about his talent, maybe he wouldn't have fights in the dressing room. And from people, I understand there is people are taking sides now. They're either taking the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, or they're taking CM Punk's and that Ace Steel. I guess that's his name, right? Ace Steel.
Yeah.
Either taking their side. When I look at that, if you come into my dressing room, it's my dressing room, which, hey, CM Punk has his own dressing room. We need to clarify he had his own dressing room. I believe there might be a fight. I mean, I'm sorry, especially, and what gets me is they get so mad about what they say. Well, has Young Bucks not seen their tweets and stuff that they've sent out? If they've not read those things, I mean, I don't get why they're going to get all upset.
There's a ton of fault on both sides. CM Punk was mad going into that press conference. He said a lot of things that really should not have been said. No. There's one rule, and I guess you would call it bro code, is that even if you quit being friends with your buddy, you don't spill your buddy's business in public.
Yeah.
But he did that, with Colt Cabana, and who had nothing. Absolutely, he was not even at the show. Has not been an active part of AEW programming in some time, although he is still there. He's just with the Ring of Honor branch of it, which they're really not doing much with. But, Punk just will not let go of animosity, which shows a great lack of maturity on his part. Now, did he have a reason to be upset? Yeah, probably. I don't believe I would have reacted quite the same way. Maybe I just, hey, how about this? Respect the business a little bit more. But it's a new day. We see that respect doesn't really exist anymore. But at the end of the day, if you come storming in my locker room looking for a fight, you've come to the right place.
We talked about when CM Punk came there. We said there's only a small amount of time before he does exactly what he did in WWE with AEW, and I think that's where he's at now. He's always going to be the constant victim of something. He wants to be a victim,
It's
and it's really sad because CM Punk really had a lot to give AEW.
and it's not about the money to him. I mean, he is the highest paid wrestler there. I don't know how much he's getting paid, but it's he's nobody makes more than him. Probably not more than one or two that even come close to his level. But his ego is more important to him than his bank account, which he has taken care of his money from WWE. I've always heard that he invested well. He lives kind of frugal. He's not at he doesn't drive Maseratis and all that kind of stuff. So he didn't have to come back to wrestling. He wanted to prove a point to himself, is what he said. And I don't understand what this point is now, what it has to do with coming back, and except for ruining the image that you did have or cementing it, either one.
Wade Keller, and I can't remember, is Pro Wrestling Torch his
Pro Wrestling Torch?
He did a story on the Young Bucks basically, and said that most people like the Young Bucks. They said they ain't many people that doesn't like them, except for the people who watch them wrestle. But other than that, I guess we don't know them individually, and I don't know that I'd want to, even if he was around. But he didn't say the same thing about CM Punk. But here's the thing. A year ago when he went there, everybody was talking about how great CM Punk was and how he helped people and how he was so what did something change in that amount of time, or is it just CM Punk? Is that who he becomes?
I think he has just got an abrasive personality. And I understand that, I prefer people who tell the truth, but you don't have to be rude in the process. And that's where Punk is. He just rubs people the wrong way. And at the end of the day, Punk only takes care of Punk.
I know Triple H didn't much care for him.
No, I don't believe we will ever see him back in any capacity in WWE.
No. But talking about good wrestling, I want to talk about a good wrestling card. I was here at this card in 1979, and then we'll see what the insiders got to say. But I wanted to share this because it was Sunday, May 27, 1979. We would drive from Cleveland, Tennessee to Marietta, Georgia on a Sunday. And I believe these cards started at 8:15. I'm not for sure. If I can't remember, it doesn't say on here. But this was the card. Here's the card that happened. Marietta, Georgia, sold out. By the way, it was sold out. It was packed to the rafters. When people say that, this was really packed to the rafters because this was soon after Ole Anderson and Ivan Koloff, and there you see Tommy Rich and Chief Wally McDaniel. Georgia, is that blurry or is it just my eyes, Jack? Georgia Tag Team Championship. No time limit, no disqualification. Blackjack Lanza managed by Bobby Heenan against Bob Armstrong. Bob Armstrong booking at this point in time during this time period. And I think Ole Anderson was also the booker as well. But I think Bob might have been the assistant booker. Hold versus Hold, Cobra versus Sleeper, the Superstar against Wrestling One, plus two other big matches Sunday. Best pizza I have ever eaten in my life is the Marietta Cobb County Civic Center. I don't think I've ever had a pizza as good. I spent every dime I ever made selling programs at this point in time on the pizza, but tremendous card. National Wrestling Alliance, Georgia Championship Wrestling, program subject to change. We always used to say that should just say program will change, because I undoubtedly every match sometimes changed. Good card. Drew some great, and this was it. Ole Anderson, Ivan Cole, Tommy Rich, Chief Bobby Daniel, tremendous match. Whatever you want to say about Tommy Rich had great matches, especially during this time period. Tremendous matches, and I just, I love going back to see this because the fans were so into it. This was just a tremendous card. And 1979 was a great year for Georgia Championship Wrestling. That's the year that Dusty Rhodes gets jumped in the parking lot. Just a lot of good things happened in 1979. And I really look at it. If you look at 1980, it didn't do as well. Georgia Championship Wrestling didn't do as well. But you can see why. Go back and look at 1974, 75, 76, and then you look at 1980 when they bring in people like Ironmark Sharp, Mike George. And not that they wasn't good wrestlers, but they just didn't fit who was there prior to it. Right. It just, and then the Freebirds came in. I think they were very good at what they did. But great card, great memories. Marietta, if you never got to go to Marietta Cobb County Civic Center, I think the building's still there.
Yep.
I think the Cobb County Civic Center's still there. I don't know if they ever have any wrestling there or not.
I don't believe so.
But oh man, it was such a great place. All right, you ready to go see what the insiders got to say, Jack?
Let's check them out.
Carl Smith is with us. Hello from the Mid-South. Hello to you. Kevin Penley said, hey, last week I was at that nasty casino Brent went to a few years ago. I'm kind of thinking about, I went to a lot of nasty casinos. Glenn Allen Shelton said, hello all. Richard Hood is with us. Richard he sends some great stuff. Does he send that stuff to you, Jack?
He does.
Oh, just tremendous things that we need to really talk about on here. Wendy Harkins said, evening, everyone. Feel better soon, Rodney. I hope he does. Dr. Phil Grice is with us as well. Hello, gentlemen from hot South Alabama. Michael Barr is also with us. Donnie Hester is with us as well. Dr. Philbo Marva Scott. Richard Hood said Marva Scott was a pioneer of women wrestling. Yes, and very, she was a huge star. We'll try to get it way up on there so people can see who we're talking about. I mean, that's looking blurry to me, but I cannot see very well anyway. So, I may be almost legally blind. I'm not sure. I could be. Let's see. Hello, Northwest Tennessee here. Glenn Allen Shelton. Dr. Philbo Grice, Jack said that I heard Rodney was out because he met Kevin Sullivan's Tree of Woe in the parking lot of a Waffle House. You was talking about Bobby Fulton. Bobby I always liked. Terry Taylor, on the other hand, there was just something about him that rubbed you the wrong way too. He was your 80s CM Punk. I don't think he ever didn't complain. I just don't think he did. He could have been in that. He could have been the Hyatt Regency, and there would have been something wrong with that room. At some point, there'd have been something wrong. Maybe the elevator didn't open as fast as he thought it should have. But Bobby was always a nice guy. Charles Bellflower is with us. Did J.C. Dykes carry a canteen filled with lead? I believe he did. Yes. Now, I know Crybaby Cannon also did that. So, but I truly believe he did do that. He also had a whistle that he would, and they would make a big deal out of this, that he would blow a whistle and he would tell his team what to do, even cheating maneuvers. He would do that. And so what would happen was they would sell, and Jimmy Dykes was part of this, he would sell whistles in the crowd and everybody would start whistling so that it would mess up the whole team so they couldn't cheat. But I am pretty sure that you are right about that. Hit all kinds of other stuff. You know, he was the master of always having things that he could beat people with. I never got to see J.C. Dykes, but our father always talked well about him, and he drew everywhere he went. The Infernos drew. What's new? Wendy Harkins. Logan Paul has a death wish at Crown Jewel.
I think he'll do good.
Is that with the Roman Reigns?
Yes.
Do you think that the Saudis asked for Logan Paul?
Yes, they did.
You know, because they
asked for him to be on the card because he's very well known because of the internet there, and WWE also needed somebody fresh, you know, for that main event. I think this is very logical, sound booking.
It'll be interesting. I believe that from what I've heard, Roman Reigns is going to hold the title at least up to WrestleMania. So good for him. I think maybe he's now one of the longest running champions they've had in a long time.
Of the current era, yeah.
Kevin Finley, Jack, I'll see if you know this. Is Miss Betty, Bobby Heenan's secretary, still alive?
I really don't know.
No, he always would. Primetime wrestling. I would take primetime wrestling. I guess it was every Monday night. I think maybe it was Tuesdays. You remember what night primetime wrestling came on?
Primetime was Tuesday nights.
All right, because eventually they put Tuesday Night Titans on, that stupid talk show that Vince McMahon thought he was Johnny Carson. But I always enjoyed it, but I never watched any of the matches. I only watched the Bobby Heenan Gorilla Monsoon, and I actually have 3 years of Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon with no matches. All it was their ins and outs, because I thought they were tremendous. That was the best part of the show. The rest of the matches just was.
I believe Bobby's wife did pass away this year.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
Bobby Heenan was so good.
Yeah.
Man, he was so good. And such a nice person.
Yeah.
You know, we met him in 1979 when he came to Georgia. I guess he was on this card, wasn't he? Yeah, Bobby Heenan. He's a nice guy. Just a nice guy. Now, I think he got a little messed up because at that time period, I couldn't see Ole Anderson telling anyone, "Hey, come on in here and we'll keep you as long as we can keep you." I just don't see that happening back in those territory days.
I was in Atlanta that last night. He was there because he was supposed to have brought Terry Funk in against Tommy Rich in a cage match, and I believe it was a loser leave town. And they went out and said that Terry Funk had travel issues and he couldn't come, but the promoter had said there will be a match tonight. And since Bobby Heenan set this up, Bobby Heenan will be in the cage against Tommy Rich. And I don't believe I have ever seen anybody get their behind kicked or bleed as much as Bobby Heenan did that night.
You know, Bobby Heenan could have drew money long term in Georgia. He could have. But the territory was a little different than the AWA territory. And I remember when he came in, because I remember asking this question, even as a kid at 9 years old. I said, well, wait, because we knew Bobby Heenan was in the AWA, and he had managed Nick Bockwinkel, the AWA champion, and several other people there. So we had known it not from being able to watch it, but the wrestling magazines. That's where you knew Bobby Heenan from, Nick Bockwinkel. You might not have seen them wrestle, but you knew who they were just based on the Bill Apter magazines. We call them the Bill Apter magazines like he owned them. But you know what I mean? But Bobby Heenan could have done it, but I don't think that territory was designed for that. You think about it, Rock Hunter didn't stay a long period of time. Don Carson didn't stay a long period. Gorgeous George Jr. didn't stay. No manager really stayed there for a long period of time, because I don't think Ole Anderson liked to pay managers. I think Paul Ellery might have stayed there longer than anybody. And I think he just did that because he needed somebody to take care of the Road Warriors. Wendy Harkins, NXT is going back to being known as the Black and Gold brand. From what I heard, Jack, is that true?
That is why tonight's episode and next week's were pre-taped, because they're doing extensive overhaul at the facility there in Orlando and putting all new graphics up. They're taking away the crayon colors and they are going back to the black and gold.
Yeah, I agree with that 110%. And hopefully go back to the way that the NXT was prior to that.
It really has been better.
So, and we'll you know, recently I have been finding new avenues to after 32 years of printing doing something. I've been finding different avenues. I've not really had time to watch. I'm always trying to find that new avenue of what I'm going to do next, long term for at least the next 12 years before I turn 65. So 13 years. Get well, Rodney. I hope he has a tape of the best of Kevin Sullivan matches to keep him entertained. You know, I watched talking about that. I watched the video. Now I do take the time to watch old videos. And Kevin Sullivan did do some stupid stuff at that point. He takes like a throw over the top rope that would not have even he wouldn't have even went over the top rope in the bump that he took. And I'm thinking, Kevin, what are you? I was thinking to myself, and I can remember back in those days that we'd tell Dad, said, "What in the world was that?" He said, "I don't know," because Dad didn't call him Kevin Sullivan; he called him Calvin Sullivan. He would never call him Kevin. I guess maybe he didn't want to call him Kevin. I don't know.
I remember setting up in the upper decks there at Columbus, Georgia, and watching Kevin Sullivan have a match. And the match was good because Kevin was really worked hard back in 79, 80. It wasn't until after that the work rate went down.
Yeah.
But I remember sitting up there watching this match, and I don't even remember who he was wrestling against. But whoever it was coming. Kevin was laid out in the middle of the ring, and the guy was coming off the top rope. And Kevin was laying there the entire time, just looking up at him. And I'm thinking, dude, if you can look at him, you should be moving. And he did not.
Kevin did a lot of things like that, you know, and I like Kevin. Kevin's a good guy.
Oh, I love Kevin. I do.
A nice guy, was always nice, you know, but he just did things that was bad for business sometimes. You know, it's just you know, Ric Flair was always nice to me, but I felt like he did things that was bad for business in some instances.
You know, and we say that with the old school mentality in us. But Kevin had a very successful career, you know, and parlayed his way into being a creative force there in WCW. And there was some good stuff that came out of there when he was in charge. Not
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
but at least his name wasn't Vince Russo.
Kevin Sullivan understood the wrestling business, though. I
He did.
will give him that. He did understand the wrestling business. I think he just tried to overly put people over. You know,
And if Rodney's watching the show right now, Rodney, just calm down. We're about through. You can quit rolling your eyes. I know it must hurt.
Rick Brooks last week was the first show I missed in over 2 years. Can't believe it slipped my mind. Well, we will get in touch with you. You did a no-show. A no-show in Bill Watts terms. That's a $500. That's $500 fine for just not showing up whatsoever. Buddy Landell paid a lot of those. So, Rick, now you're going to have to pay the $500 fine. The bill was $500 fine for not showing up to match. You know, you had to do a lot for Bill to fire you because he'd just fine you. That way he could pay his bills off of your fines. Kevin Penley, Jack, Nick Goulas was helping run WOW. The tapes are on YouTube. Why did he choose to run Pensacola, etc., and not Nashville?
I don't know that Nick was actually promoting those. I think they tried to use his name, and he may have even made some appearances there. I'm not sure, but he was not promoting at this point.
That show was not being played in Chattanooga, was it?
No.
because we were living in maybe Alabama at the time, and we might have been in Kansas City at the time. So I remember the show being done because that's where they found Davey Haskins right before 1987 when Ron Fuller goes to USA Championship Wrestling, and they were going to call him Donnie Rich to begin with, and we thought, oh man, please don't call him Donnie Rich. That don't even sound right. And then eventually they called him Davey Rich, but this had to be 87.
Somewhere around in there, because I remember getting called to get booked, and I can't remember who booked me for there. And then before I could even do the show, they had shut down.
Because that was Randy Tyler, right?
Yeah. It wasn't Randy that called me, but it was somebody there.
Or Rip Tyler, maybe Rip Tyler.
Rip Tyler, yeah.
Rip Tyler. I remember that. I know Jerry Stubbs went and worked for him as well. Wendy Arkins, Jack, any idea who is White Rabbit vignettes are about?
Well, we were just talking about that before we come on air. Let me show you a graphic that this is the upcoming Extreme Rules pay-per-view. And if you'll look up in the upper left corner behind Riddle's head, I have circled it there. I don't know if y'all can see it quite enough, but the lantern that he always brought to the ring, Bray Wyatt, is you can see it behind his head there. So Triple H, when asked last week about Bray Wyatt coming back, he would not give a yes or a no, but he said, we have done this deal about, bringing people back on Raw and SmackDown. He said, if somebody of the caliber of Bray Wyatt comes back, he said, it won't be a surprise on a Raw or a SmackDown. It'll be a major deal on a pay-per-view. So
Kevin said that the original Rabbit was Killer Kross.
He did a gimmick called the White Rabbit in Mexico. Now, I know that they're throwing shade out there. Even Killer Kross is saying, oh, well, that was me in Mexico. But there's no upside for WWE for doing that in relation to it being Killer Kross.
Yeah.
So, and they've been playing I think it was Jefferson Starship, maybe. Whoever did the song White Rabbit, they played it during the intermission at SmackDown. They also did it yesterday at Raw.
I believe what's happened is WWE is probably possibly, since they're playing all this music, they ended up getting a license agreement, and we're looking at getting one of those too, so we can play any music we want to play at any time, intros, outros, anything we want to do, and we won't get in trouble for it. And it's not that very expensive, but probably very expensive for WWE. Not very expensive for us, but probably very expensive for them. Let's see, Lonely. I'm Mr. Lonely. This is Mako. I've got nobody to chat with, and even the third wheel is not here. Oh, so there's a song like that.
Yeah.
Jack, how old is Ricky Steamboat from Richard Hood?
69, I believe.
Still looks good to be 69 years old.
Oh, he looks great. He is on the NWA shows now. He's like a commissioner type deal that he's doing with them. And honestly, I haven't seen Ricky in about 4 years, but he looks better now than he did then, and he was in tremendous shape then.
Such a great talent. He's
and such a great guy.
Yeah. Please give us a break, Rick and Ricky. Rick Brooks. Rick Brooks not a big fan of Ric Flair making his retirement match.
I will go out on the limb here and say that Steamboat's match will make up for the quality lacking in Ric Flair's. Although I did enjoy Ric Flair's last match for what it was. If he comes back again, I ain't buying
it. What is the deal with all the undisputed belts in WWE for Michael Barr?
Well, they've combined the tag team belts, the men's tag team belts, and the heavyweight world and universal championships. And it's just, storyline. It's getting it, trying to build it to prominence, trying to build Roman Reigns at the same time, building the Usos, making that whole faction mean something. And I'll be honest, some of the best matches I've seen over the last 2 years come from that group. And I don't care who they've been with, that has been some of the best matches I have seen in years. Those guys deserve to be where they're at. Is that going to be long term? No, I don't think so. I think after WrestleMania, they're going to start putting those titles out and dividing them back up again.
Glenn Allen Shelton, he's got ROH, Ring of Honor. Where is he going to put it? I don't think he's got an outlet for it, does he?
Well, and when I said this last week, I had read a report where he is owner of Ring of Honor in name only, that it is not a complete sale yet. So, what TV company, even the one he's got to deal with now, they're not going to do nothing until he has complete ownership.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know what that process is. I don't even know what that means yet, because they're very hush about it. But I think that, barring Comcast, NBC Universal buying them out and absorbing their outlet there, I think we'll see Ring of Honor somewhere on there eventually.
Petty Lynn, I think that's how you would say that, wouldn't you? Pretty Lynn Sullivan. I told you I can't read. I can't read and can't see most of the time. Everything's blurry to me all the time.
I'm gonna have to put glasses.
From Illinois, viewing now. Michael Barr is saying, I hope everyone is doing well. I think we are. Michael Barr, CM Punk can stay mad. He is not the draw he once was. But was he really ever a major draw, though?
Here's the thing. I think CM Punk's draw was there. I don't think you would never confuse him with Hulk Hogan or a Ric Flair as far as draw. I believe Triple H outdrew him as far as seats sold. But he was controversial. And sometimes there's a great deal of fans who prefer the controversy over the content of the matches. And I don't get that. But we're seeing that now because AEW has those hardcore fans. And we know that they've got all of them because their numbers never increase.
Yeah.
They're all right there. And that's great. I'm glad they tackled that market. They're making money. Hey, more power to them. But I think that was what the draw was, and he has been a draw for AEW. But now that he's gone, the controversy is still it's drawing, but Punk's not there. And we all know that he's not going to be back at least for 8 months if he's back at all. But the ratings have stayed up and consistent. So, that controversy is still driving them. Maybe, I don't know how long that's going to last, till they get some really strong content. And their shows haven't been bad. We may have a riot if Bryan Danielson don't win the world title, but so I don't know. Is he a draw? I think he's a draw, but I think he's a limited draw.
Yeah. Jack, when you worked Continental, what was your schedule like then?
Well, now when I worked Continental, all I did was TVs for the most part until the last, what was that, Brent? 3, 4, 5 months of the promotion. And then I got to work a lot of the shows. But I worked, I'd work the TVs on Mondays in Birmingham, and then I worked independent shows Tuesdays, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays. So I was off on Sundays and I was off on Wednesdays. That was the only off days I ever had from wrestling. And a lot of times you would do, 2 shows on a Saturday. I did a TV taping And we did a show on Friday night somewhere up in Tennessee, did a TV taping during the day in Knoxville, where I wrestled 4 matches, drove all the way back to Gunnersville, Alabama, and wrestled in 2 more matches that night.
And the guys complain now because they had to work.
Yeah.
I gotta work 10 minutes. I was only gonna have a 3-minute match. What are you doing?
Well, even on the shows that we did after Continental, you know, I did an opening match to set up for the tag match. Then I would come back and do that mask Jason from Friday the 13th gimmick.
Yeah.
And then we'd do the tag match, and then we'd do the blindfold battle royal.
Yeah.
So I'd work. Out of what we have 6 matches, I was in 4 of them.
Now I want you to look, and people say, well, where did you get that at? Well, that's the way the wrestling business was. Look at 1967. You had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 people on the card. Now those 10 people had to put a 2-hour show together. 2 out of 3 fall matches. Usually they would do 1 fall, have an intermission, come back out, do another match, have an intermission, and then they come back. The Fargos would do that, and they would change outfits every time they would come back out for the next and do some other stuff that we'll have to talk about later on to their opponents. That was not very nice. Fargos was a little nasty. A little nasty. Drew a ton of money in professional wrestling. Punk said that he said he wrestled with children. He should know since he does a lot of tantrums a lot.
And I'm not disputing that.
No. Let's see. Rumors going around that the third Will has been suspended after trying to fight the bitter one after last week's show. How long is he gone? Will he be fired? Call Uncle Dave and give this. Oh, Uncle Dave. Joel Cornette does not like old Dave anymore. I don't get the mania over CM Chump. He seems like a brat. Dr. Phil Pocross.
Well, I don't really get it either, but let's remember that how long was he out of the business? 8 years?
Oh, yeah.
And yet you never went to Chicago. That fans didn't chant his name throughout the shows. You didn't go, in other areas where he was very popular, they would hijack the shows with the CM Punk chants. Yeah. So, he resonates with a lot of people. We're just not those people.
No, I never liked him at WWE, but I do kind of like him at AEW. So yeah. I never thought he was
I like to watch him. I do. I think he's a good wrestler. Now, is he a great worker? No, but he's very good at what he does. I can enjoy that. But if I were running a company, I would never have him in the locker room.
One of the problems, he gets hurt a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, he's accident prone. Him and
and here's my thing: is he knew he was hurt halfway through that match. So instead of calling an audible and saying, hey, let me just put John Moxley over here because I'm not going. I know my triceps torn. I'm gonna be out, forever. But he didn't. He wanted that pop.
Well, he got it in a couple of ways. Pop loose and pop at the thing. Ever notice that the Bucks never lost on TV? The Office never loses. From Kevin Penley. Unless you're Bob Armstrong. Lost a lot.
And I have to argue with him about he put too many people over.
I remember when he was in Knoxville, USA Championship Wrestling. We would he lived across the street in another apartment complex. We lived you could see each other. You could see you. He could open up the curtains. You could wave at him. That's how close we lived to him. And so I would go lay out in the sun. And if I could do that over again, if there's any young folks listening, I'm pretty sure they're not. But if there's any listening, don't lay out in the sun because when you get old, you know you've laid out in the sun. So don't. But anyway, I did. And Bob would come over there. And I remember telling him, I said, Bob, when are you going to win a match? And you get carried out every night. At some point, you got to kick somebody's tail because you're killing yourself. People, you need to be the butt kicker while Scott and all them they do the selling. Let them get beat up and you come and kick some tails because there's no tail kicker here. And for years, Bob Armstrong was the butt kicker in those territories. And that's why it kept on drawing. When Bob Armstrong finally said, okay, all right, I got to take this guy out. And people knew he was going to. And I think that always did it. So I don't know. I can't watch the Young Bucks wrestle. I can't. I've tried. It's the same match every time. Having a good attitude toward the fans kind of makes the fans want to come back and see their favorite wrestlers. Yes, unless you're Austin Idol. I don't know if you didn't know Austin Idol though. Looking at Austin Idol, just seeing what he does, and not knowing him, not knowing the kind of person he was or is. He may be the same kind of person. I don't know, but he was very good at what he did. He really was very good at what he did. He was another one of those people that connected to the fans.
Well, I learned a lot from Austin of wrestling against him, being in the locker room with him. Austin was not there for friendship. He didn't care if you liked him in the back. He was not there, to be in a brotherhood. He was there to make money, and he made a lot of money. And he taught me that you got to put business first. Now, I learned that you can also be friends with people and not be rude. I learned that on my own,
Yeah.
But I did learn a lot from Austin. I'm very indebted, for those lessons, and thankful that I was able to share a ring with him, because he taught me how to be extremely light, because he would complain for days if you touched him too hard.
Bob Armstrong did not like Austin Idol. He was one of the few people that Austin Idol, and he did not like Valiant, not Jimmy Valiant, Johnny Valiant.
Johnny Valiant.
Not like him at all. And Bob liked almost everybody. And there was a time that he didn't like Wendell Cooley. I think those days were over as years went by. But Rick Brooks. I don't understand how Punk can try another profession, get totally humiliated, and then come back to wrestle and still have a fan base. I don't think those fans watched that, though. Do you?
No, I don't think they did. And if they did, they didn't care.
All right,
they wanted to see him no matter what.
Kevin wanted me to read this card again on this JC Docs programs. Here it is. Main event was grudge tag match. 2 out of 3 falls. The Infernos with JC Dykes against Lester Welch and Sam Steamboat. Texas Death Match. Mario Galanto against JC Dykes. Special feature. Lou Thez against Sputnik Monroe. Girls match. Marva Scott versus Emma Wright. That was the card. Fort Lauderdale, Florida, February 10th, 1967. Hey, evidently, Lester was a very smart man, because Lester had a sandwiches, beer, and liquor place there. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I'm pretty sure that's probably Lester's place there. I love these times. And you know what? Maybe I'm an old man now, and I don't watch the new stuff. So turn your glasses around there, Brent. No, I think you know what I'm going to have to do? I'm going to have to get a magnifying glass, and that way I can read the stuff. That's what I have to do. Wendy Harkins says Punk blamed the doctors from WWE for his infection that he got. I don't know. I mean, can't you get an infection no matter what doctor you would have?
Yeah, his basis of his lawsuit that he filed against the doctor, and won, I believe, was that he kept telling them there was something going on. He wound up having a staph infection, and the doctor just kept blowing him off And eventually, I don't believe he was diagnosed properly till after he walked out, till after he left WWE, and that was the basis of the lawsuit that he had against that doctor. Was he felt like he ignored it in order to just keep him in the ring.
I mean, it could happen. I'm not saying it. Michael Barr, prayers out to Rodney. Yes, he'll be much better. He just didn't want to cough and sneeze and snot all over the place. He didn't think people wanted to hear that. Donnie Astor said, "I grew up in Marietta. Great pizza, and that was one of the strongest cards the Cobb County Center ever hosts. The Cobb County Civic Center is still there and going strong, but no wrestling in a number of years." Yes, they had great pizza. You had to go downstairs. It was at the bottom of the place. It wasn't to the upstairs when you couldn't get the pizza up there that I remember. You had to go downstairs. It was so good. I'm making myself hungry. I'm going to have to go get me a pizza here at the show. UC Women's Wrestling out Vegas is back on. Yeah, that's is it WOW?
Wow, Women of Wrestling. Yep,
I seen it. It looked good.
Yeah, and they've got deals, a lot of CBS affiliates, so they're getting out there. And of course, our friend Selena Majors, Bambi, is a big part of that behind the scenes. So I hope they become the biggest wrestling company ever in history just for her involvement, because she deserves it.
Mark Dar, great to see you guys. I grew up watching GCW every Thursday night in Rome, Georgia. The Memorial Gym was there many Thursday nights. The best matches I'd ever witnessed in my life happened in Rome, Georgia, and that was Dick Slater and Mr. Wrestling 2. Just tremendous matches for 13 weeks in a row. Sold out they sold out that Memorial Gym and it was all about Mask and the Georgia heavyweight title, and it was tremendous stuff. Kevin Penley, didn't JC Dykes throw fireballs? Yeah, he did, and the Infernos did too. But now he said he never threw them. That a man could not throw fireballs. That could just could not happen. And that what he would always do is try to yell out when he'd see flames coming. Jody Hamilton, I think, took some stuff from JC Dykes during that time, because JC Dykes was he was what a manager should be: a liar. Sunday was first show. Glenn Allen Shelton, Wendy Harkins, the Bloodline, got another belt last week on NXT. Did they win another title?
Sola Sokoa, who is the youngest of the Usos brothers, Rikishi's youngest son, I believe. He has joined the Bloodline now, and he captured the North American Championship on NXT.
All right, Michael Barr asked this question: how many wrestlers way back do you all remember had a loaded boot supposedly at one time or another? Well, the Infernos did. Robert Fuller did. I'm pretty sure there's a couple other ones we're missing.
The Grappler did.
The Grappler did, yes. I believe maybe the Dirty Wild Boy. Did they wear?
I believe they did. Yeah.
There were so many people. We even promoted shows where was it the original Sheik, but we had our own Sheik, and he would use a loaded boot as well. So yes, it's been done many times in the wrestling business. The Infernos, though, had an actual loaded boot. It was a real loaded boot. You could take it off, take it apart, and you could see, and they used it in every territory and drew a ton of money with it. And we could have got that boot, and we did not go pick it up. We could have that boot right now. We could show you right here, but no, it's in a landfill somewhere, and it's gone forever. Christopher Hughes, back in the day, I would wake up for Saturday morning cartoons going to that 1 p.m. after the America's Top 10 with Casey Kasem. Gordon Soley and Buddy Coat would be on Florida Championship Wrestling. I look forward to Saturday all week long. I would sit in front of the TV, glued, rocking back and forth during commercials, waiting with bated breath to find out who was going to be in Orlando on Sundays. That was my allowance every week. The Eddie Brown Sports Stadium. I miss pro wrestling, making me feel that way. I know what you're talking about. Charles Bellflower. That tag match for the finals of the Cadillacs tournament at the Omni packed arenas throughout the state. Yes, and when they did win, and Chief Walt McDaniel and Tommy Rich did win, Ole Anderson, Ivan Koloff jumped Wally McDaniel in the parking lot. I wish they would have not done that because it had just been done several months later. So all wrestling companies have done that. One thing works, they just keep on doing it.
Yeah, I think they only kept the Cadillacs 1 week because I know they won them like on Saturday or Sunday, whenever they were in the Omni, and then they drove them to Columbus and parked them in the box office.
And then Tommy Rich probably decides at that point to go get him a Trans Am. So I think he did actually get him a Trans Am. Let's see, because wasn't that the time that the oh man, Smokey and the Bandit was huge at the time. Maybe that time the second one was coming out. Hi everyone, you guys are awesome. Happy birthday to the Hammer, Greg Valentine. That Bulldog match, what was it called? It was on a Bulldog match, was it?
No, it was
a dog collar match. Dog collar
match, yeah.
Yeah, dog collar match for Roddy Piper, the greatest match of all time. Very, very weak finish because they were both almost dead from the match they had.
I just watched that about a week or so ago.
Oh, so good. So good. I mean, they were beating each other up. But poor old Roddy Piper messed his ear up in that. And I think he always had problems after that over that. Women of Wrestling on Sundays.
Yeah, I think it's according to where you're at. I know it comes on our Birmingham affiliate on Saturday evenings at 6 p.m.
Richard Hood, Ole didn't like managers. Yes, he didn't like using the champion as well. World champion as well, because he didn't like that money going to the champion instead of the talent that was working there. And I understood. Right. Yep. Wrestlers changed territories quite often back in the kayfabe days. Yes, they did. That was just part of the wrestling business. David Bias, good evening, guys. Have a great show. Thank you so much. S.Y. Cowboy, Playboy Gary Hart claimed Jerry Jarrett and Rolly West was half brothers. Is this true?
That's what he claimed.
Yeah, that's what he claimed. I don't know if that's true. There was always said that Roy Welch was father of Jerry Jarrett. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. You'd have to ask Jerry Jarrett that, and I'm not for sure even knows that. It's kind of weird that Jerry Jarrett was put in positions that other family members was put in. So maybe or maybe not. I don't know. We don't know for sure. We've always heard things, but we're not the National Enquirer, so we won't go into that on this show. And we are trying to figure out how we can do a show that we can talk about stuff like that, and not. But man, we've not had no luck whatsoever. I mean, I have tried my best to find some way to do it. I can't. In Continental, all who've done the ring announcer, you're talking about like. I'm not talking about hosting, right? We're talking about a ring announcer that I know Mike Jackson did. Scott Armstrong did. My brother did. I did occasionally as well there. I don't know. I'm gathering Charlie Platt, Rick Stewart did the ring announcing, especially a ring announcing, not hosting of a program. Can you think of any other people?
No.
Cat Collins.
The ones I was thinking.
Cat Collins did it for a while. Freddie Miller did it for a while.
Did Sterling Brewer do it, or?
Yeah, I believe yes, he did. There was a lot of people. We need to make a list of that because there were a lot of great ring announcers at the time. I always thought Mike Jackson did a tremendous job.
He did
at that. Kevin Sullivan was one of those way out there wrestlers. Yes. I liked him before he turned heel in Georgia. It was just after he turned heel in Georgia I didn't much care for. Richard Hood, guys, you're upsetting Rodney. Am I talking about? I love Buddy Landell. Yes, Buddy Landell was tremendous. Such a great guy. Buddy was his own worst enemy, and he would tell you that every time. He never minced words that he was. That he could have been world champion. And I believe he could have been world champion. I believe they would have put the title on him. Buddy was that good. When you talk about a professional wrestler, Buddy Landel was a better professional wrestler than Ric Flair. The only problem is Buddy just had demons that he couldn't get rid of.
Yep.
And but man, and Buddy was such a nice guy. You couldn't hate Buddy Landel. He was such a good guy that you was very hard to stay mad at him. You just could not stay mad at Buddy. Jack and Brent, just remember, Rodney will be back, and well, we all know the rest of the story. Be prepared for that next week, folks. Who booked Fred Ward Promotions? Norman Carr. Oh, it would have been Georgia Championship Wrestling. So whoever was booking the Georgia office, what you watched on television, whether it was Bob Armstrong, Ole Anderson, Buck Robley, George Scott, whoever was booking at the time. For a long time, Ole did not like, for some reason, did not like Fred Ward. I think because he'd go out there and change matches sometimes. He didn't want to.
He would book a couple of matches of his own.
Yeah,
that, separate from the booking office too.
But most of the time, our father also booked there for a while. If you've seen Bobby Eaton go against Ted Oates, if you went to any of those matches and saw those matches, that was our father that booked all of those. Nobody wanted to use Bobby Eaton on the main event, and Dad took him to Columbus, Georgia, and made great houses out of that. So Ted Oates could draw you money. They're still the Oates could draw you money in Macon, Columbus, and it could have in Atlanta and all that too, but they didn't allow it. Good evening, gurus of pro wrestling. Mr. Rodney from Bishop Michael Nesby. Let's see, that's Bray Wyatt. Rodney West is coming down. It's also 1980 Georgia Champion Wrestling. Taylor and Sullivan together. What a dream. Let's see here. I don't know what. I don't know. I don't think that's our Rodney West. It may be, but I don't think so.
No, it's not.
Jack, it was Jefferson Airplane.
Yeah,
recorder.
I knew it was Jefferson something. I knew they changed at one point, but I didn't know when.
Does Austin Idol have a son wrestling? I don't think so, does he, Jack?
Actually, they're doing an angle with NWA where his son is under a mask named Son. Now, that's not his son, but that's the angle that they're doing.
Okay. Michael Barr also said Jefferson Airplane. Let's see. Well, I don't know. Here, I believe it could be Rodney because this is what he said. He saw Georgia Championship. Taylor and Sullivan were there. What a dream team. Couldn't fast forward enough. Had to wipe my screen with toilet paper. So, yes, that is.
Yeah, that's her, Rodney.
Yeah, that's yeah. Glenn Allen Shelton said Ricky Steamboat is 69. Yeah. Grim Jess, interesting. Not for sure what that meant. Let's see. I wish that the WA would just have one belt for heavyweight championship, Bishop.
I do too. I wish they would combine both at Universal, which I hate that, calling it that, but Universal World titles, just combine it into one championship.
Yeah. Richard Hood, get well. Rodney, Bishop Nesby also said, hey, Brett Jackson, Rodney is not here tonight. Can we talk about Kevin Sullivan? Y'all just know that he's on there, and y'all want to put him over the edge talking about Kevin Sullivan. He's sleeping with the Leopards. Hello, everyone, from Victor Nash. David Bice. NWA has a lot of great talent. Hold down, boy, Jax Dane. I know you talked about
Dane is fantastic. What a good guy, and he'll tear your head off if you disagree with me.
Jack, what was your favorite territory to work? Did you ever get to work tape it in TBS studios?
No, I never got to go to TBS. Really, the only territory I worked per se was Continental. I caught the tail end of the Carolinas territory. I got offered a job in Memphis, and then they told me how much they were paying, and I came home.
The TBS studios was tremendous. I always liked the WTCG studios that was not on Techwood Drive. I'm thinking that it was on maybe Peach Street, but it was a better studio. The atmosphere was a whole lot better because it was a smaller studio. When it got to the TBS, where the TBS Studios is right now, that sets on Techwood Drive, uh, it just didn't have the same. I don't know. It just didn't have that same atmosphere that WTCG had. But I went to that station so many times, and on Saturday mornings, and I will tell you, I fell asleep a lot. They get up really early, but there was a lag in between hour one and hour two that would make you fall asleep. This just was not good. You're right, Jack. CM Punk is a contraband wrestler. Dr. Philbo Grice. Austin Idol was a good ring character, but otherwise a jerk. Yes.
What you saw in the ring was that personality was Austin.
Yeah, there was there was no difference. There was no difference really. I meant wrestlers, not Recklers. Spelled it wrong. Okay, we knew what you were talking about. I think I even said it right, even though it might have been wrong. Come to think of it, every show that I ever worked where the promoter owner was a wrestler, they were champions. The main event, the booker, never lost. Never. I will not name names. A lot of times in the territory days, the reason they did that because they could rely on themselves. Because of now, people would walk off on them. And David Mullins says hello. Christopher Hughes also said, an all women's wrestling organization that can make money. Well, they tried it before. It's been tried. So it just
actually WOW was doing fairly good before COVID hit, and that shut them down for a few years. I don't know. I think they're going to do really good. Because they have the right TV deals in place. I don't know that Tony Khan can pull off a women's show. He has some women there that are extremely good, and he has some there that are extremely not. And I'm not just talking about women. There's a lot of guys there too that, people say, well, why aren't they on the main shows? Well, if you watch the YouTube shows, you might figure out why they're not moving up.
One of the greatest feuds in GCW is the Masked Superstar and Mr. Wrestling 2. Yes.
Amen.
Yeah, it was tremendous. I like the Four Horsemen, David Mullins. They were tremendous as well, especially the originals. They kind of went off. It's like NWO, kind of went away off in the left field. I remember those matches between Dick Slater and Wrestling 2. Slater was Dad's favorite wrestler. Dick Slater was so good in the ring. Man, he was good. He was a little weird. He was a little weird type of guy, but tremendous wrestler. Happy birthday to Greg Valentine from Glen Allen Shelton. Michael Barr, as like the IROC and Continental Wrestling. When Robert Fuller and Jimmy knocked the windows out of it, we've talked about that. Rodney's the one that came up with that idea, gave it to Robert Fuller. Robert Fuller took it, and tremendous thing. A lot of times Robert wouldn't. He was good at listening, and if he thought it was good, he would use it. Jack, do you remember Bobby and Ricky Fields from the 70s?
I know who they are. Bobby, Ricky actually wrestled in Columbus, Georgia, a few times on the Wednesday night shows, and I thought he was tremendous. I thought there was, he was going to be a huge name.
I think if I'm not mistaken, he came there when Ron Fuller bought the southern part of that territory. I think he came to Georgia after they had bought it because he had been there for so long that he needed to go somewhere. But I'm not for sure after Georgia, did Ricky Fields ever wrestle anywhere else?
I don't believe he did. I mean, he just disappeared because I really, I bought all the magazines back then too, and kept my ear to the ground just trying to figure out what happened to him. And I never saw where he ever wrestled anywhere else.
Gary Hart,
which is a shame.
Love Jerry Jarrett. There wasn't heat there. It was white hot. You have to assume he did not like Jerry Jarrett. Now, to his defense, to Gary Hart's defense, and to Jerry Jarrett's, they did bring Jerry Jarrett in as the booker, and Gary Hart was booking. So I can kind of see why Gary Hart got a little upset. But that wasn't Jerry Jarrett's fault. He should have got mad at Jim Barnett because he was the one that brought him in. So Norman Carr, our father was there, so we we kind of know what was going on at the time. WRBL TV3 in Columbus, Georgia, every Saturday at 3 p.m. Central Time. Fred Ward's Columbus Championship Wrestling. Your referee is Ron West, said Jim Carlisle. Yes, very a lot. Went to that TV station a lot as well.
I did too.
Well, it wasn't a TV station; it was a sports arena. What?
Yeah, bleachers all down one side.
Yeah, loved that. Loved that place.
Yeah,
loved it. Great atmosphere there. I always loved that TV. Plus you get buy some concession stuff there. You notice there's a common thread between me and that place. Always wanted to eat while I was there. I always liked Rick Stewart. Yeah, Rick Stewart was tremendous and such a nice man as well. His work with Tony Schiavone at Starrcade '86 was really strong. I didn't realize he was on Starrcade '86. I did not realize. I didn't know he ever worked for the Crockett's. In 1985, and Young briefly revived All South Wrestling. Dick Blood. Yeah, and he called us in 1987, I believe it was, and he wanted to come in, and we were trying to get him in there in Continental. Who was the original Steve Regal?
I don't remember what his real name was, but he worked AWA and was an excellent talent.
We met him in Georgia. He wrestled Georgia Championship Wrestling for maybe a year. Actually, a tremendous wrestler. I don't know what happened to him after AWA, though. I know he went to WB for a month, and then he ended up gone. Christopher Hughes, the grappler, said in his book that everyone loved Buddy, even Bill Watts, who was always yelling and fining him. Yes, even he liked Buddy. Buddy was just hard to not like. He was such a nice person. That just... the world lost a good one when they lost Buddy. He was always a very, very nice guy. Michael Barr, Ron West was one of the best bookers. All right, something came over the top of that. Okay, maybe I can hit the button right. All right, here we go. Well, I thought we was going to have some technical issues for just a moment. Ole was strictly business. He didn't care if you liked him or not. No. But he did that on purpose. Yep. He was the booker. He didn't want to be your friend, because when he got ready to get rid of you, he didn't want to. Grace Slick. Who's Grace Slick? Saying Wild Rabbit.
Jefferson Airplane. Jefferson
part of the
singer.
Michael Barr also said, "Hello, Rodney. Good comment there, brother. Get well soon." Sean Smith, don't give any idol any checks and tell him not to cash them. Yes. Thanks, Brent. I can say what I think without getting any bad feedback from Rodney. I like Kevin Sullivan with the Varsity Club. What say ye, Rodney? From
I can guess.
Yes, as well. Jason Harkins getting into a twin of taping in TBS Studios in Techwood Drive was a surreal experience. Despite it being almost entirely squash matches, it was really cool to be in the studio where so many great memories took place. Yes, yeah, it was a lot of squash matches, and there was a lot of time in between each hour of wrestling. Many times, Stan Hansen was having a match in there, and that's when I rolled off the. And we had already waited for a good 30 minutes. I don't know why it took so long in between each taping. I don't. Brent, it was 1018 West Peachtree Street. Yeah, I always liked that. During that time and period, when it was at Peachtree, you would see Ted Turner there. I don't remember ever seeing Ted Turner at the other station. I mean, I don't know if he just didn't come there, but he would be there. Ted Turner would be there during that time frame. Maybe that was before the cable got huge. I'm not for sure. Do you know that there was a Wrestling 2, Johnny Walker impersonator in Plains, Georgia, that fooled the whole town, including Jimmy Carter? Pretty sure there were. There was a lot of Wrestling 2s.
Yeah, well, and they did the impersonator gimmick as far as the TV show too. Which
Joe Powell did it once.
Yeah, and Wrestling 2 was not happy about that because they didn't ask his permission beforehand.
Yeah, Ken Woodby also did a fake Wrestling 2 in the Tennessee area, and he wasn't too happy about that either.
Nope.
Wrestling 2 was Lillian Carter's favorite wrestler. She was a huge Georgia Championship Wrestling fan. Yeah, there is a photograph of her where they took it. In the,
Yep. In the dressing room or maybe in the hallway or something. But um, Bob Armstrong, Tony Atlas, Ronnie West over standing behind, I believe, Tommy Rich. So,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a good pitch, a good pitcher there.
yeah,
Tony
very
Khan
good.
needs the testicular fortitude to trim the fat. I believe that's a Mick Foley reference, is it?
Yes, he has got to get somebody that can actually run that company because he's worried about being everybody's buddy.
Yeah.
And you absolutely, if Ole were able, that's who he needs. He
Yeah.
needs somebody like that anyway that will go in there and doesn't care. Maybe he can put a box of tissues on his desk while he's yelling at people. But you need somebody that's not afraid to put people in their place, tell them what needs to be done, and then enforce the rules when they break them.
Yeah. Somebody asked me the other day, says, would you try to do it? No, we tried. There was no, wrestlers are just not the same breed of wrestlers that they were back in the 80s and 90s, even the 90s. There's just a different breed now. They don't want to be. It don't matter what they make either. Has no clue. It has no. They don't care what they're making. They can make $1 million a week.
No, because we were guaranteeing money that I know these guys don't make anywhere else. Double, sometimes triple what they would make anywhere else. And yet they're telling us what they will and won't do.
So I don't know that I could handle that. I'd have a heart attack probably trying to do that. I believe Glow Wrestling hurt women's wrestling because it was a joke. Yeah, I'm kind of with them on that.
Yeah,
it was kind of crazy.
But you got to admit though that they learned from their mistakes and adapted, and the new WOW is pretty good.
Is Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine still around? I believe it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's probably the only wrestling magazine left. Which I saw Bill Apter post the other day about they just had their top 100 or top 500 wrestlers. And of course, everybody, if they make that list, they go crazy. They forget that it's a work. But, he said, guys, y'all got to quit messaging me. He said, I have not been at Pro Wrestling Illustrated since 1999. 20 something years, 23 years. And they still message him when they don't make the list.
Another great guy, Bill Apter. Tremendous.
Tremendous guy. Which, by the way, he was never an editor there.
Yeah.
He was the face that everybody saw though because he was the lead photographer.
Yeah.
So they just figured that's the guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he just took the photographs. I know him and Dad would talk to each other on a weekly basis. Dad would give him information for Georgia Championship Wrestling that he needed. And then Gene Gordon sent a lot of pictures in. Emmy Yates sent a lot of pictures in. And occasionally, when the big card was going to happen, Bill Apter was there. I believe he was there the night that Dusty Rhodes won the title in the Omni against Race. I think Bill Apter was there. But
Bill was one of the first to break the story about your dad passing away also. As a matter of fact, messaged me to verify before he put anything out there and wanted to make sure it was all right.
He was always a nice guy though. I understood this some crazy story writing, which I don't think he wrote the stories. I think somebody else wrote
the story. They had a staff of story writers on there.
I think I think they're maybe the people that write wrestling now are reading those stories and getting those stories. There was some way out there stories. Brent, have you and Rodney thought of writing a book together about your father and your time growing up? We have thought about it. Yes, we have thought about it, but we wonder who would actually buy it. That was the thing. I believe that Jack may be having a book here soon.
Yeah, my book is with the editor now. Now, there's very, very little about wrestling in this first book. This is about me growing up in the South, but I'm working on the wrestling story book to come out later. So y'all got to buy that first one before I can afford to do the second one.
There you go. Let's see. Rick Stewart was sick, a sweet feller from S. White. Jason Hawkins. Was it Mr. Electricity, Steve Regal, the son-in-law of the Destroyer? Yes, I believe he was.
I believe so.
I always heard and read that from different sources, but never knew. He was a great guy. We got to run around with him in Georgia. He rode with us several times through matches. I think they missed the boat in Georgia, not pushing Steve Regal there because he
I,
was
I
very.
I never met Steve. Now I did get to spend a day with Dick Byer one time up in New York, and that was a wonderful experience.
Nothing beats going to Continental Monday nights. The crowd was so electrifying each and every night. I love the atmosphere there. Wish it was still going. Yes, I agree. Steve Regal's father-in-law is William Snyder, who helped train him.
Wilbur, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Who had the best wrestling faction? The Horsemen, the Russians, the Legion of Doom, Henning family, Captain Lou. I say Horsemen. I'm going to give it to the Horsemen as well.
If you're gonna say factions, then yeah, I'd say the Horsemen.
Because I don't know, was the Russians, would they be considered a faction?
I always think of factions as four or more,
Yeah.
and maybe that's just me.
All right, we're going to get through this and then we'll have to get off of here. Bishop Nesby said Friday nights at the Atlanta City Auditorium were awesome. Yes, they were.
Yeah.
Abdullah versus Sheik, Miss Wrestling 2 versus Superstar, and other great matches in that place. Yeah, we are going to return back soon. We were telling the cards of the Omni from the beginning card of the Omni. We're going to get back to that. Hopefully my time kind of slows down where I can get back to regular things that we were doing. 1994, Ted Turner appeared at ringside for a couple of WCW tapings at Center Stage. I seem to remember Jane sitting next to him one night. He made a lot of cringing faces on camera each time I got hit a move. In one match, where was that?
The Nasty Boys completely nailed two jobbers, and Ted's face was hilarious.
Ted Turner was a nice guy too. We met him several times at the stage. He was always nice to us. Brent, what would it take now to make pro wrestling today like that of the territories? We don't have the time to really talk about that, but I think it could be done. But man, it'd take a lot of money.
Well, that is really what Triple H is trying to do with NXT now. That's the reason they're not hiring independent wrestlers anymore. They're looking for high school, college athletes that are coming up that have no experience so that they can take them to that training school and teach them the way they want it done. And he has more of the old school mentality as far as storytelling. And I think I would say the next 5 years, you're going to see a big change. You won't see it all at one time, but I think they're going to stop or pull back from all the big dangerous moves that they're letting them do now, and go back to a more mat-based style of wrestling.
And I think it'd be good. People won't get hurt as much. Will there ever be territories like? No, I don't think they'll ever go back to 30-something territories.
No, I don't. And one of the biggest reasons why is there's too much competition for that entertainment dollar.
Yeah,
it'd just be too hard.
Bill Apter is a super nice guy from Richard Hood. Wendy Harkins said I would buy the book. Let's see. Christopher Hughes. Yes, guys, y'all are on the money. AEW needs Ole running the shows. Nick Bockwinkel doing urine tests. And he needs to use all those great wrestling minds how he should use them. An old-fashioned booking committee instead of a group of TV writers. Yes, I think we'd all agree with that.
I don't really mind the writers if they've got wrestling experience.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm with you on that. I would purchase the book, Jack, Brent, and Rodney. Good idea because they all grew up in wrestling. Mark Dodd, did they ever tape the matches in Rome? No. They only tape things because back in those days, to tape something cost a lot of money because it wasn't like you could just take it right directly to the TV station and use it. It was on a reel, so you had to take it, tape it down to a place, have them make it into another tape. It was a lot went through that. Now, once videotape come along, it wasn't a reel, that was fine, but it cost a lot of money to tape something back then, and then put it on things. So, And I think Jim Barnett must have been cheapskate. But there was a bunch of those we threw away. There were a ton of them tapes. We threw every one of them in the garbage. I'm talking about tapes that went back to the early 70s. We threw away. And another thing that, oh man, I'm not a drinking man, but I think I'm gonna start drinking right here after this show. I would go with the Four Horsemen as well. I talk pure wrestling. There was 32 territories, yes, and that will never happen again.
That was here. I bet you there's 1,032 independent shows nationwide. But even back in the territory days, you still had Japan, Mexico, Europe. There were wrestling everywhere, all over the globe was going strong.
I want to tell everybody here. The last thing I want to show people is this card right here. I just want you to take a look at the lucky number. They actually wrote these in. Somebody actually had to set back. This was 351. 351. And I want you to know I did not win whatever the lucky number was. And I believe it was a picture of Butch Thornton. And I didn't really want it anyway. So I started. On this card, on this card particularly, and they did this thing on television, and I'm gonna show you this, and then we got to get off here. But this card has Butch Thornton against Butch Thornton on this card. And I can remember Les Thatcher came on the television. A guy named Butch Thornton came on, said he was Butch Thornton, wrestled as Butch Thornton. The very next week, Harry Thornton was back and told everybody that guy that was Butch Thornton was not his son, Butch, that he didn't know who he was. And that's how they ended up with Butch Thornton versus Butch Thornton. And you can tell it was a great angle. It was the second match. So, it was a tremendous angle. But they did do that angle on television. Chattanooga TV. All right, Jack, anything we need to talk to the people before we get off?
Don't forget our t-shirts, merchandise. If you'll go to the Pro Wrestling Inside and Out Facebook page right at the top, there's a link for some of the stuff. You can also go to ProWrestlingTees.com. I think there's 3 different versions of the t-shirt, maybe 4, available there. Just type in Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. That'll take you right to it.
S. White, you asked the question, who ran Georgia Championship Wrestling at Carrollton? It was Jim Barnett and Georgia Championship Wrestling Incorporated. That was their town. Carrollton, Georgia was. Fred Ward did Macon, Columbus, and Albany, Georgia. Remember seeing Thunderbolt Patterson there in the late 70s in Carrollton, Georgia. Yeah, that was Georgia Championship Wrestling Incorporated, which was the owners of Georgia Championship Wrestling. And a lot of times our father was the one that took care of that town a lot until Chattanooga started. And then he went to Chattanooga, Tennessee. All right, guys, thank you so much. We certainly do appreciate you being a part of Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. And thank you so much for on our Facebook page. Thank you so much for sharing our post. Sometimes they reach 400,000 or 500,000 people, and it's because you're sharing those. We do appreciate that. Also on our YouTube channel, thank you so much. We grow a little slower on our YouTube channel, but we want to thank you so much because we get about 40 to 50 subscribers each week, and it's free. Get over there, and it's the easiest way to find our old show. It's very hard to find them on Facebook. Go to YouTube, and you can watch all our shows. I think we've done over 170 something around there. So get over there and watch them, and that supports us as well because every time you watch it, it helps pay for our streaming services, our editing program, and everything that goes to do this program. All right, thank you so much, and we'll see everybody right here next week. Tuesday night, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. We'll see you next week right here on Pro Wrestling Inside.
Be there.